Welcome to Paranormal Living, previously known as Light Talk, where the paranormal is part of our everyday life. We live with it all the time. So, for our first guest on the new name, I want to be excited to have her here. So, let's go ahead and get started. So, welcome to the new Paranormal Living.
Yeah. Hi, Dana. Well, it's very exciting. First time for me to be the first interviewee. So, yeah, thank you very much. As you said, my name is Vesna Matic, and I am what is called a licensed master's level psychologist, an LMLP. And my license is in Kansas. So I have been in the field of clinical psychology my whole profession. And I was just talking to a friend. It's hard to believe it's been like 30 plus years. I have seen all ages, children, teenagers, adults, all kinds of issues, Vietnam veterans, PTSD, physical, sexual abuse, substance use, and of course, other things as well. And I also am very, I'll say, spiritual. Okay. I have always incorporated things like meditation into my work. Okay. Because I do feel that we are spirit in human form. And, because of that, it is very influential. And so I also do ceremonies. I use alternative healing methods, pranic healing, EMDR. I have singing bowls. So many things, plant medicine as well. Every person is different. So what works for one person doesn't work for another. So have these different options. So kind of going back to, the theme of your show. Actually, once before when we were speaking, you said that, so often people are more visual, okay, and they see ghosts, spirits, and that kind of thing. I am more I go based on intuition. And I do that also in my work when seeing clients. I just get these hits, so to speak, about where a person's kind of issues started and why they started. Okay. For myself, both my parents came from the former Yugoslavia, and my mother very staunch Catholic, my father Serbian Orthodox, so two different faiths, and they agreed that whenever children came, then we would be raised Catholic. So consequently, I went to Catholic elementary school from kindergarten through 8th grade. And there are still a lot of things that I hold dear to the Catholic religion. However, I still remember being 7 years old and in the Catholic faith. You first have your first confession, and then after that, you have your first communion. I remember standing in the back of the church by the confessional, waiting for my turn to speak. And I'm looking up at the front of the church, huge crucifix. I was scared. I kept going over in my head asking, what sins did I commit? Did I disobey my parents, my teachers? Did I lie? What did I do? And then the other concern was making sure that I remembered the act of contrition. Okay. So, and to this day, sometimes I still, if and when I go to confession, I'm kind of repeating that over and over. In catechism class, so many of the things that we were taught here again just didn't resonate. Because on one hand, they're teaching that we have this connection with God. But then again, if we have such a strong connection, then why in the world do I have to tell my sins to this priest? Now, another thing was, well, what in the world happens to all of the people in the world who are not baptized? Where do they go? All right. So all of these questions, just kept coming up for me in elementary school, and never really got an answer because it's supposed to be you trust, you trust. So when I got older, I started reading, talking to people, and things like that. Um, so, um, through as growing up as a child, the home where I grew up was an older home, and we had a basement that covered the length of the house. So of course, the basement, first floor, second floor. And to the basement, there were like 13 steps. At the very top of the staircase was a switch for the light. And then you walk down the steps, and then we had a light bulb with a pull-on switch. And then you walk down a little further, well, there was another light bulb with a switch. And then all the way at the end of the basement was a cellar, meaning cellar as in cellar, right? Since both of my parents came from Yugoslavia and my mother was born up in Slovenia, and my grandparents on my mother's side were farmers. So, of course, they also had a vineyard. And because of that, when my parents migrated to the US, they also made homemade wine. Okay, so of course, we had like 4 big oak barrels, and those were in the cellar. We lived in that house from when I was about 3 years of age up until almost 13. And here again, I still remember I would only really go down to the basement if there was someone else with me, or if I knew that someone was home and they were upstairs, right? And when I went down in the basement, I would run through the basement and I would turn on all the lights. And when I left, I would turn them all off. And, thank God I was out. So when I was going for my bachelor's degree, I had a couple, good friends of mine. He did astrology, and he was a really good master of astrology, had been doing it for years and years. And his wife was very intuitive. And so one day we were just talking about experiences, and I mentioned this to them. And she sat back and she was like, well, I know why you were so scared to go in the basement. And she said somebody hung themselves down there once. And that just sent a shiver down my spine because it made so much sense. I mean, I always had this really eerie feeling when I was down there. Never saw anything, but I just, again, felt it. So also in that same house, like I said, we had a first floor and we had a second floor. And up on the second floor, my parents turned that into an apartment. And so, people would come and go. And one time when this man moved out of the apartment, we went upstairs, my mother, my aunt, and myself, to clean up the apartment. And there again, I just got this really weird feeling that there was something up there. Okay. This time it wasn't really, I didn't feel like it was, I'll say, benevolent or anything, but just this energy that was around.
Right.
In that same house, one night when I was sleeping, it was an older house. So instead of doors, we had those arches. And there was, that chimney that was in my room. And one night I woke up and I saw this very distinct shadow and this outline of a soldier with a hat and standing there with a spear. So the same couple that told me someone had hung themselves in the basement, that was also a soldier from many centuries ago. And I didn't feel that the soldier was going to do anything. I felt more that it had to do with my history, but being young, I was scared. So I ran into my parents' bedroom and stayed there the night, So
Right.
that house definitely had some messages, and so life goes on. And then one night, my husband, at that time, I lived in San Diego, and my husband went out with a friend, and so he was gone all night. And I was lying in bed, and I was sleeping on my left side, and all of a sudden there was this. It was as if though a person had sat down behind me and kind of put their arm around me, very gently, very softly. Okay. And that lasted for, just about a minute or so, and then gone. All right. So the following day, I was talking to my husband and I told him about my experience. And he said, not surprising. There is a female, there's a woman spirit that comes around every now and then. Okay. And I think it was this woman who paid me a visit. Yeah.
Um,
Um, so I know it kind of, got into the subject very quickly. And I guess, one of the things I really want to impress upon people is that, and perhaps me being in the field of psychology, people think that it's a weird mix, a weird blend, psychology along with the spiritual side. To me, it's very normal because, again, this is what we are, And when I'm sitting down with clients, and so many of them will come forward and talk to me about grief. So I have my quote unquote day job. I work with Native Americans, all different tribes. And then I also do see clients individually. And so often with Native Americans, there is, and not all, of course, all tribes are the same, okay? But so often they will say once a person dies that they are not allowed to mention their name, okay? Or even speak about them because in their tradition, their belief, that will keep a person bound to the earth, which of course is not something that you want to do. You want to be able to release them. So they will
right.
come in and we will talk about, grief and everything. And they will come and tell me different stories about seeing their loved one or perhaps hearing their voice. And I always say again, the spirits are around us all the time. It's just that we don't pay attention to them because they can't communicate with us the way we are doing right now. We see each other and we're having a conversation. Well, because they are in a different form, they can't do that. So that's why sometimes, we'll be sitting there thinking about a person, and all of a sudden, we hear from them. Well, for spirits, um, I know with my husband passed away 20 years ago. And every now and then he will appear to me in a dream. Okay. And that to me says, oh, okay, thank you. You're watching over me. Um, there are times where all of a sudden, I'll turn on the radio, and my husband loved to play the saxophone. As a matter of fact, he taught himself how to play the saxophone.
Nice.
And one of his favorite musicians with my husband's favorite song will come on, you know. And here again, it's like, thank you, you know. Um, I know that you're around. So that's kind of how they appear. And the more I would say receptive we are to those things, then it also happens more often because we are opening up this channel. And that is what it is so important, is this opening up the channel.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That is awesome. I'm sorry about your husband's loss. Um, but I'm glad he's coming back and visiting. That's awesome. That's awesome. I have a couple times my mom has come back and given me a sign that I kind of asked for. So it resonated, it worked well. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
pretty awesome.
Yeah. And I don't, sometimes I really question why people are so afraid to um, possibly even consider, that, spirits are out there, and it's nothing to be afraid of. I think because of, let's say, movies and, these horror movies and things like that, people kind of think that, well, that's how they are and that's what's going to happen.
Right.
For me, one of my favorite movies, and I'm going to date myself here, uh, Ghost with Whoopi Goldberg.
I love that
Uh,
movie.
you know, the first time I saw that movie, at the end where he's standing there and you see all of those lights, I started crying, and my husband was there, and I told him, I said, that's how I see it. That's how I visualize it, is that, people that were important to us, people we didn't know, our, great grandparents and all the way back. But I feel like that's what happens when we do die, when we cross over. So again, it's something, very beautiful.
Yeah, it is. And first time I watched it, it was, a movie. Da da da. That was cool. That was nice. And then I got into all of this and I watched it again. It's like, oh my goodness. It's like everything is like so to life, It was like, that's amazing. That is
Yeah.
really amazing.
Yeah. Actually, another movie that I also like to watch every now and then is The Shack. If
The
you ever saw it,
Shack. Yes. Read
yes,
the book
yes.
too. That's a really good one too.
I never read the book. I've only seen the movie. I love Octavia. So, that movie is so perfect for me because number one, God is a woman. It's not God sitting up on a throne making judgment, were you good or bad with the beard, and that whole thing.
Mhm.
But here, God is a woman. And um, so it takes him through his journey and also his uh, spiritual beliefs and what happens in life. And I always say that in that movie there are so many great one-liners. And one of the things that were said in the movie towards the end, which always sticks with me, is when he has that choice. Do you want to be dead or do you want to go back on Earth, right? So he asks God that question. Does anything I do matter? And God's response is, if anything matters, everything matters. And that is so powerful because, yes, everything we do is very important. Yeah.
Very true. Very
Yeah.
true. Yeah. It's been a while since I watched it. Maybe I'll have to get out and watch it this weekend. Yeah.
There are, a scene in that movie here again that is very powerful is because his father was an alcoholic, physically abusive, right?
Mhm.
And I don't want to tell too much about the movie, but in the movie, as a young child, he ends up killing his father. Okay. And he carries that guilt with him throughout his life. And so, in one scene where you have all three, God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit, and also Mac in this movie standing on a hillside, you see here again those lights in front of him, and he asks that question, like, what is that? Well, and the answer, from spirit is that that's what we see. We see lights, and we know that because through the Carillion photography, right? They can see auras when someone takes a picture of you. So we are light. And so that movie, The Shack, just again kind of reminds us, that this is what we are. And so for Mac to see his father and they both forgive each other is very powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. It is. It was very powerful. And yeah, and it's the way it's kind of hard not to say anything, huh? But the way dad revealed himself to him is
Yeah.
that was a powerful thing. And then the family and everyone that was behind it was really awesome. Really
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, seeing things like that, and I often think about the person who actually thought up of these movies,
Yeah.
Ghost, The Shack. Yeah. Um, I think that is just kind of more proof, that there are things out there, and they are always trying to communicate with us and kind of pass on these lessons, these messages, and they help us, because when we're watching them, it just kind of strikes that chord, um, which is perfect.
Yeah. I think they've experienced things. That's how they get these movies and everything. And The Shack is supposed to be a true story too.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Call it correctly. I believe that was supposed to be a true story. So yeah, I think a lot of these producers or writers of these movies experience these things. Like I always go back to the Jetsons when that came out.
Hmm.
I mean, how would they have this idea of all of that in that time of life? And, it's like somebody had to have had a message or like a vision or something to
Yeah.
explain the details that went into that show. you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I
Agreed.
think there's a lot, and like with Star Wars and all these kinds of movies, there's a lot of experience that happened prior to the movies, I feel.
I always say that all these movies, even those that are, so to speak, sci-fi, always have some truth in them. But they, of course, they have to exaggerate, embellish because movies have to sell, Hollywood, all those kinds of things, you know.
Right,
So that's where all the rest of the stuff comes from. Yeah.
right, right. Yeah. I just think it's pretty amazing, how they've put it into movies and shows, and nobody thought twice about it.
Yeah.
I never thought twice about it. The Jetsons, okay.
Right.
Yeah, okay, it's a show. And then, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
now it's like we're
Yeah.
almost there, it's crazy.
Well, and they do, they kind of prepare us, I think, for
Yeah,
when, it definitely, or when they really become visible,
yeah,
and maybe to just a larger scale. Yeah.
yeah. It'll be coming because with that being out that early in age, like you're saying, it's the prepping, getting us used to that kind of thing, is so that now the cars are getting to where they drive themselves, and even hearing about cars that hover, and it's like we're almost there, but we had to be prepped and
Yeah.
get our minds wrapped around this whole concept before they can bring it out. Agree.
But, to me, it can also be very scary in the sense that um, mindset has to be in the right place.
Mhm.
For example, and taking it away from this, okay, if we even take, let's say, the computer, okay, so when someone came up with this idea of a computer, I mean, never before could you click on to the computer, and still to this day I am amazed in that, I take my mouse, and I can open up a window, and all of a sudden, poof, I'm over there, or I can talk to someone halfway around the world in a second. Technology, amazing. When they first thought about this, their intention was to bring things to us, right? So that it would be simple, that people could do this, and help humanity. But then you have people who turned around and started using the internet and still do. For, we have pornography, we have sex trafficking, and all this stuff. So anything which can be good at conception can turn. And that's why I say mindset is what is so crucial. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's got to be on the person that's working the computer to do the right thing. And we have to, as a humanity, we have to trust that everyone's going to do the right thing with these computers. And as we all know, it doesn't work that way all the time.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
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 So, yeah, it's just pretty crazy. Pretty crazy. Yeah.
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 But
So,
but the,
go
oh,
ahead.
go ahead. No, I was going to say, there is so much good, and I think, yes, hopefully, that is what um, the main drive is in order to help everyone, and just make life easier, and
Right.
including, with the paranormal. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You have all the apps out now that helps show where the spirit is or where they're located, hearing them, seeing them, yeah, there's so much out there now that it's amazing, you know.
Yeah.
And then you have
Yeah.
what they call the YouTube University. So, you learn a lot. And now you have all this AI on your search engines and all. So it's like, I mean, it's a whole nother world even in the past year. It's just always changing so fast.
Yeah. It is. It really is.
Hmm.
So yeah, keeping up to date and watching things, and hopefully, people won't be afraid of whatever it is that they see or that they feel. You know,
Hmm.
um, just like with everything. Um, yes, they're kind of going back to the spirits. There are those energies which are not so good, and it's important to, here again, be discerning. you know don't
Right,
do something that potentially will open up that Pandora's box. you know
right,
and,
right. Yeah. Yeah. It's just all just so crazy how it all works. So, did you grow up in like a haunted house or something like that? Or it was all just kind
no,
of normal? Okay.
yeah, it was normal. It's just that I just happened to have these experiences. I don't, my brother, mother, or father um, never experienced that. So, uh, for whatever reason, it was me. You know, um, I guess I do a lot of things. Along with, of course, again the psychology and uh, working with Native Americans, different tribes, me myself doing ceremony. I have always believed in reincarnation. I find it, I don't know, unusual. I think, when someone tells me that they don't believe that. Um, I know I've seen some of my past lives, and again, it's kind of normal to me. I think that is that's a reason why we do come down on this earth plane, is that we want to experience certain things. We want
Right.
to learn, you know, and so we decide, okay, I'm going to come down here. So I think, again, I think that that's normal, and
So did you
I
ever
don't
tell
know.
your parents that you felt these off feelings in the basement and
I didn't tell my father. I did tell my mother years and years later. She was surprised. She had no clue that I would, run out of the basement. So she kind of laughed. But here again, she never felt that. Um, I believe my mother is also very intuitive. Okay, and I believe that she got that from her mom, my grandmother. Um, and So my mom, for example, would in our culture, and I always laugh. The only coffee that I like to drink black is Turkish coffee. Okay. And to me, it would always be so funny when I would hear people say, "Oh God, that's so thick." Well, no, Turkish coffee isn't thick. It's if you drink the coffee grounds on the bottom of the cup. Yes, that's thick. Okay. But in Yugoslavia, and there still are people that do that, but I would say there were many more before. What some people would do is read the coffee grounds, just like some people read tea leaves. Okay.
Right.
Well, there would be some people who would read the coffee grounds from the coffee. And my mother, of course, when my parents came here, had a lot of friends who also came from Yugoslavia. And she had a few friends in particular. One woman would read the coffee grounds and then do a reading using standard card deck, right? So
Okay.
she would, kind of tell your future. There was another couple, a husband and a wife, and they would also read the coffee grounds. So for me, that was normal. Okay. My mother as a kid would take me to visit these people. I thought it was great. Um, my mother could also do that. And she predicted uh, for, and when my brother and sister-in-law, one day when my sister-in-law, when they were visiting my mom, and she had some coffee, and my mother asked her, "Are you pregnant?" And her jaw dropped because she had not told anyone yet, you know. And so that's how my mom found out. So yes, all of these things were just everyday kind of life for me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's really awesome because I'm I've been taking a while getting through my journey and all of this, trying to get all up to par, getting to where I'm in that upper level of everything. It's been a long journey for me. And yeah, it's like some I'm not jealous, but I'm not sure how to explain it, but it's like you kind of wonder why some people don't get it until later in life versus those that have it at the beginning. Or, it's just the curiosity in me, it's those questions.
Um, well, so if we do a deeper dive, okay, um, a lot of times I like to ask people, do you believe in reincarnation? And oftentimes they will say yes. Okay. But the thing is, they don't do a deep dive into what that means. Okay. So when we do a deep dive, our souls are up there and we're in our soul group. We're talking and we're saying, okay, I want you to be this in my life. Okay. I want to learn these things from you. And just like you tell me, okay, I'm going to be this in your life and I want to learn these things from you. Okay. So we're all learning. Well, then we come down here and we have to forget all that stuff because it would be just too much for us to remember. Okay.
All right.
Plus the fact that if we decided we were going to really have some hard lessons, okay, when we were still up there, we would say all of a sudden, oh, forget that, I want to do something easy. Well, too late. Okay. So having said that, we often make the comments like, well, you can't choose your parents. That's not true. Because when we were up there, oh, yes, we chose our parents just like they chose us. Hallelujah. So there is no blame game because we chose each other for a reason. Okay. And that is why it is so important not to start, pointing fingers, hating, blaming, or whatever. Okay.
Mhm.
Because we did that. And yes, those are the things that I will talk to clients about.
Hmm.
Now,
Interesting. Interesting. And speaking with that, you do like some shadow work when you're with it. So can you explain how you go about working with the shadows, people's shadows?
Sure. Well, one thing could be potentially, doing some ceremonies. Okay.
Okay.
Um, um, I also have what's called rape. I do go to Peru. I take people on spiritual journeys around the world. Okay. In May, I was in the Amazon rainforest. Um, November, want to go to Nepal. We're going to meditate with the Buddhist monks and nuns. But anyway, so with rape, um, rape, one of the ingredients is a tobacco. It's called mapacho, which grows in the Amazon. Okay, it's a tobacco. It's different than the one grown here, of course. Okay, and so it's ground very fine, and then they include other medicinal plants. So it's not an hallucinogenic. Okay, it's like snuff. It is breathed in through the nose. But I have a variety of rapes. Some are for people who have an issue getting out of the mind. One that helps people with meditation or kind of getting into the heart space. Okay, so different uses, different ones. So I use that. Um, a lot of times the shadow. See, we all have the shadow. Just like when I show you this piece of paper, there are two sides. There have to be. Okay, so I don't care how thin something is, there are always two sides. The same
Right.
thing with us. We have that one side, that we want to show the world. Oh, I'm so good. I'm so great. These are all my great qualities, right? And then there's that other part of us that's a lot of times we don't even want to admit to ourselves, the thing we hide from other people along with ourselves. So the more things that we bring out from that shadow, okay, into the light, the less things there are to fear. As far as spirituality, the same thing. A lot of times, yes, clearing the energy is beneficial. It's very good to do. You know, so yeah.
Yeah. And that goes all the way down to birth, right?
Mhm.
All the way down to birth.
Well, here again, birth.
Yeah.
We are so multifaceted. We were just talking about reincarnation. A lot of that stuff comes down through reincarnation from lifetime to lifetime.
Is there a sign that people can kind of look at? So if something was to happen or there's aches and pains within the body that they've always had and they've never had any like surgeries or anything like that that would cause these aches and pains, how would you is there a way to figure out, you know where I'm going, a way to figure out if it's from this life or if it's from a previous life?
Well, um, a lot of times um, dreams are very telling, very important. And we may get snippets in our dreams, okay, of past lifetimes, okay.
Okay.
Um, Even during meditation, things start to come out. All right. A person can also go to for a reading, okay, um, and find someone, yes, who does past life readings. You have the Akashic records, which that's the big book, so to speak, up there. And everything that we have done in our life is in the Akashic records. So yeah, there are a lot of people who are able to go back and pull out those things. When, let's say, someone is stabbed in a former lifetime, it will come out as a physical pain now. And it is important, or it is good to discern, um, because right now in society, yes, a lot of stress, anxiety, a lot of people being depressed. And I always say we as human beings do one of two things. Either we let things out through talking, physical activities, or we stuff our feelings, our thoughts. We can only do so long. We can only do that for so long until the body finally says, I've had enough. And that's when physical disease occurs. Okay. So a lot of things that happen today are also because of that. Okay. And once, because every single disease has a meaning, and that can be tied to previous lifetimes as well. Sure. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Very awesome. Very awesome. Okay. Well, do you have any last minute things to be saying to my people?
And you may have gotten a whole lot more than you bargained for. So,
Hey,
you
no,
know,
I love it. I love it. I love it. So it's absolutely no problems. Yeah, no, this is
yeah.
great. I love it.
Um, oh, good, good. My website is visionsforlife.org, and everything's spelled out. Visions, plural, for FOR, life.org. And on my website, there is a place also to contact, so that my phone number is on there. People can call me, email me. I do live in Phoenix, so I do see people, face to face. I love seeing people face to face. However, I do also do, of course, nowadays through Zoom, that kind of thing. Um, and yes, I mean, I think I am on LinkedIn as well, and on Facebook. So yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. And we'll make sure we get all those notes and everything in down
Okay.
below. And yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show and being the first one with my new name. So that was really
Thank you.
exciting. Um, so,
Thank you.
yeah, if anyone else out there has any paranormal stories you've experienced, let me know. Email me at paranormaldana at 726 at gmail.com. And we will talk with everyone next time. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye bye.